Welcome, and thank you for joining us for a new Ask the Pet Food Pro Chat. This series is brought to you by Pet Food Forum and the editors of Pet Food Industry, the magazine and digital content provider with decades of providing the market with pet food expertise. You can find our content at petfoodindustry.com. Ask the Pet Food Pro is a wonderful opportunity to connect with industry experts and ask the questions that are most on your mind while learning information to help you and your company provide high-quality pet food and treats. Today's chat is about digital pet food packaging and its benefits, and it's supported by Roastar, so thanks very much to them for their support. Our experts today are Paula Kuhnert, product specialist, and Sadie Leu, marketing manager, both with Roastar. Welcome, both of you. Before we jump into the questions, I have a few housekeeping notes. So first of all, you've all been muted to ensure everyone can hear and focus on the discussion. So please submit your questions or comments in the chat box. Some of you submitted questions beforehand. We really appreciate those. And we will try to get to as many of those as we can today, along with ones coming in right now. And finally, this chat is being recorded. You can access the recording in about a week on our website, petfoodforumevents.com. Just click on the Ask the Pro tab at the top. So Sadie and Paula, let's start by can you please explain what exactly digital packaging is and how it works, how it may differ from traditional types of packaging or other types of packaging?
Sure. So a common misconception I think I'll start by explaining is that some people think that digital printing, you may print right on a blank package, which isn't the case. It starts on a roll of blank material, whatever the base material is chosen. We print directly on it, on the roll. It gets overlaid with either matte or gloss finish, depending on what's chosen. And then it gets converted from that roll into the finished packaging, depending on the style that's chosen. Stand-up pouch, flat pouch, gusseted, flat bottom. There's a few different styles that can be chosen, and it gets converted into the finished product. And while it's being converted, the finishing features, or I should say accessories features, get added in lines such as a zipper, hang hole, tear notch. Any of those things get added right as it's being finished. So that's how it's produced, and different than traditional printing. Digital is a little bit quicker. We do not have any plates, no registration that needs to be done. So that's kind of the difference between digital and traditional. It's printed and converted right in line, and a little bit speedier in the sense that we don't have to process the art and separate for colors to create the plates. We don't have to register all 4 colors, CMYK, and there's less waste, which is definitely a plus as well, because it takes a lot less time to get everything set up. Definitely.
Okay. So just to make sure I and everyone else understands, so a company like Roastar does all of that for a customer.
Correct. Right in our building, right in Wausau, Wisconsin. All of our materials are sourced in the US, and everything is produced right in our building in Wisconsin.
Okay. So you mentioned waste. I'm assuming then that helps with sustainability.
Absolutely. Every company, I think right now is, competing to be more sustainable than the next, but there's only so many options out there. So right now in the digital packaging industry, or the packaging industry as a whole, we are definitely competing in that. We have a few different sustainable options currently, and then in R&D, so in our new product development stages and trialing for even more sustainable options. So we've got a like a compostable material, both in a brown craft and a white, for example. You know, we have compostable zippers and valves and features that you can add onto a bag. We've recently branched out into the tin can industry, which is 100% curbside recyclable. And then in the R&D stages, we've been recently trialing recyclable options. So a lot
Recyclable packaging.
Yeah.
Recyclable plastical pack. Okay, great.
Yes, exactly.
And there's a question that came in beforehand. So you mentioned zippers and other closure options. So you do have recyclable options that also are resealable?
Yes. Yep. 100%. That's the end goal. We do have a recyclable zipper already. So the trials we're running are for an actual recyclable material. So it's like a non-plastic material is the goal.
Okay. We just had a question come in. Are you using a post-consumer waste type of paper?
We do have it's considered compostable. We're working on getting full certifications for it because it's multiple layers to create a great barrier. So each layer of the material itself is certified 100% compostable, but the material as a whole, we're working on getting that certification. But it is considered industrial municipal compostable. But again, in R&D, we are working on trying to find a curbside compostable option as well. So
cool. And another question that had come on previously was, of course, obviously everyone is dealing with supply chain issues these days. How is that affecting your specific part of the industry? For example, some of these sustainable substrates, are those, something that you have trouble getting when you need them, or are your customers experiencing any supply chain issues that are affecting what you help them with?
Right in Wausau, where we're located, we have a sister company that actually produces the majority of our materials that we use. They produce it on the rolls, and so we have a really great relationship with our supplier, and we're working closely with them. They're working tirelessly to find and source and create more sustainable, potentially, I don't know if I should say this, if it's backyard compostable would be the end goal. So we're constantly searching for more sustainable options, but we do have that resource of our supplier right in our backyard. And we do, for all of the materials that we have a backup that we make sure we always have with these supply chain issues, to make sure that if our local vendor is out or we're struggling to source, that we have a backup option for everything that we have on our website.
Great. And so are you hearing in the broader industry, whether it's digital printing or, are you hearing of other supply chain issues that, obviously you're doing everything you can to get ahead of those, but is that because you're hearing about it happening in a lot of other places?
Yes.
Yeah, unfortunately, I think most companies, not just this industry, but most industries right now are having those issues. But, we were preemptive enough to start trying to come up with a plan to avoid it as much as possible. But I think I've heard some companies are actually turning away business because they're having a hard time supplying product or materials and things like that, which is not the case for Roastar at all. We welcome the business because we have a backup plan in place.
Great. Okay. Back to some technical questions. Is someone asked just a few minutes ago, is there a preferred method in terms of the digital printing? For example, is it water inkjet, UV inkjet?
So we print on it's not inkjet and it's not, laser. It actually is an actual printing press. So, the different vials of ink and CMYK, white ink, things like that get laid down. And there's like a blanket. So it's a little bit larger and not quite the same as like laser printing.
Yeah, it does work similar to a traditional press. However, it's a digital from the source. So.
Right. Versus, for example, if you are familiar with the printing industry at all, for example, flexo printing is a really popular competitor for digital printing. The main difference in that is flexo printing is going to require plates, similar to screen printing, where every color being laid down has to have a plate. And there's a lot of extra fees, higher minimums, things like that. So that's another advantage of digital printing is we don't have plates. So there's no plate fees. You can have really low minimums, because, and we don't charge you to change your art. So if you do one run in a digital, with a digital printer, and let's say an ingredient changes in your product,
which is happening a lot these days.
Yes, exactly. A lot of regulations change. You can't have certain colors on your bag or whatever the change is. You can make that change. There's no charge for it because there isn't plates. So you update your art, you resend it, we reprint it. Not a problem at all.
Another benefit of that is the setup is rather quick for us. So if we can print a very, very low minimums with digital, specific to the pet industry, probably our most popular style is stand-up pouch and flat pouch. Minimum be 1,000, which is incredibly low. You can split that up even further as long as you're doing the same material and size. It can be broken down 100 per art file. So let's say you have different flavors. You can break up that 1,000 between potentially 10 different flavors or whatever it may be. So that's another benefit, that it can get really, really low minimums with digital.
That's a great segue into another question we had, which was, what are typical run lengths in digital packaging and digital printing, and what are the idea, or what are the recommended batch sizes? It sounds like is there an upper limit, I guess is a good way to ask that question too.
So like Sadie said, our minimum is 1,000. In the digital printing world, because you can get a minimum at such a great price, most customers are usually stick around that. We do have customers that order, 20,000 at a clip, or above that. We don't really have a max. But I'd say our sweet spot is probably around 20,000 or less, because you're going to get that best per bag price as well. And then if you do need to make changes and things like that, again, one of the advantages of doing digital, you don't have ton of waste of your inventory. We do have customers that start with us. They start at the 1,000 minimum and they slowly increase. And once they hit 20,000, 50,000, at that point, sometimes they do have to reevaluate and decide, is digital printing still the right move for us, or do we need to switch to a lower quality, more traditional printing?
And why would that be if they needed to switch? Just for the speed or the cost?
Yeah, so the speed, I think, on digital printing is going to be one of the fastest on average. But for really, really high runs, I'd say above 50,000. There are some methods, for traditional printing that are a little bit quicker. But again, you're losing quality. So for example, digital printing is on average about 800 DPI. So really high quality, where traditional printing, you're dropping probably as low as 300. So you pay a little less, you get it maybe a little bit faster, but your quality is dropping. But sometimes you have to make that sacrifice when you're growing. So.
Right. Or it probably depends on the type of product you're putting out there, what segment of the market, premium versus more value priced, that kind of thing. What about the timeline? So, you talked about some of these, very segmented, like, they can do, you can do as low as 100 within your 1,000 minimum. What kind of timeline does it take from the time the customer, submits their order and artwork to finished packaging?
Sure. So right now, at Roastar, our lead times for stand-up pouches are about 7 to 15 business days, which is really quick. The one thing that we want customers to keep in mind of though, is that's from the moment they submit art and approve a proof. So take into consideration the time it would take to design and put together make sure that is, your design is how you want it, that's probably more time consuming than the actual production of the bags.
Correct. But another benefit that she explained about digital printing is we offer proofs. So first you get a PDF proof of your artwork from us, and then we actually offer physical proofs as well, which is another benefit of digital printing. Because there aren't plate fees, we can actually produce a bag sample of your artwork, mail it to you, and you can review it. Is the color what you want to be, the placement of everything, and windows, artwork, is it all up to what you want it to be to actually place a full order, or you can make changes and do it again. So sometimes that does take a little bit of time as well if you have a lot of adjustments to make, but
Sure.
we allow for that.
Sure. So you mentioned windows, so you can accommodate packaging with windows.
And the cool thing about digital is you can split up the art. The windows can be custom to each piece of art too. How windows work is it's actually a clear material. So this entire bag is clear material, and where the window is not supposed to show, we print a layer of white, and then the color goes on top of the white to block out and leave clear where the window should be. So they can be custom, they can be whatever shape, size. The entire bag could be clear. There could be a small, for example, there's a small window. That could be really whatever shape and size is desired.
Okay. We've had several questions come in that are related to kind of the market trends. So for example, do you see a trend for matte versus gloss finish right now? Or does there seem to be a preference among your clients?
I would say it switched recently. It definitely used to be gloss, probably, and recently switched. Matte is more popular. However, if there is a window, the window is clearer with gloss. If there's a window and there's matte, it's a little bit hazy just because of matte finish. So that's just something to keep in mind. But for touch and feel, I think matte is definitely more popular right now.
And sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, I was just saying, I think since the pandemic, matte really took off because a lot more people are selling online, and a lot easier, I think, at least in my opinion, to photograph a matte versus a gloss bag.
That makes sense. That's what I was going to ask you was, do you know why? Have any idea why of the switch? And that would make sense.
That I think is a big reason.
Yes, great.
Okay. And sort of a related question, do you think, does consumer research specifically play a part in the types of packaging you sell? So from a pet owner perspective, how much do you think that influences the types of packaging you offer, the types of packaging your customers request?
Paula specifically has been doing a lot of research on what kind of packaging is being used, like going into stores and actually shopping and seeing what's out there to make sure that we're offering something that's relative to the pet industry. There are some things that are out of our scope right now that we're eventually looking into, like larger pet food bags, and that's a little bit out of our scope right now. I think this is it's probably not a good size. This is about as big as we're able to create a stand-up pouch right now. But definitely looking into what we can do to create something larger, just to make sure we're hitting all of those markets in the pet industry.
Yeah, and another product, in the research I'm doing is, we offer zippers as a reclosure option. But if you go to a lot of, pet food stores, whether it's your local one or like larger chains like Petco and PetSmart, for example, you notice in the larger packaging, there really isn't a resealable option. So looking not only to get bigger availability on our end, but being able to reclose it, Velcro options, things like that. So a lot going on that we're aware of in the industry, just making sure that we are able to produce it the best we can before releasing it is ultimately the goal.
Gotcha. So you mentioned the packaging sizes, Sadie, that brings up some good questions. So there is a limitation. Is it because of the digital printing process that there's a limitation to the size you can a package you can do?
Correct. Our web or the max width we can do is just shy of 29 inches. And we have to be able to accommodate the converting process. The smallest is about 3 by 3.
Yeah.
Largest is what I just showed, which was about 12 by 12, give or take a little bit.
Okay. Okay. So, and that's just because of the process. So that obviously kind of answers some of the questions people have about, if they have, obviously if you're selling, 50-pound bags of dog food, digital probably isn't the answer for them right now.
Not right now, but there is, the other part about it you have to kind of keep in mind is when you're getting as large as a 50-pound bag, the materials are going to change as well, like the barrier properties and how well the seals come together and what it's made of, because it's got to hold a heavier amount and be able to be, dropped and, go through the ringer, somebody trying to shove it in a shopping cart and things like that. So that's, within that whole scope of us expanding to larger sizes, it's actually a change in material availabilities and things like that as well.
That would make sense. Or people having that larger bag shipped to them by, say, an online purveyor that's going to go through some things.
Yeah.
So you mentioned the barriers and stuff. We've had some questions about, like, for example, do you do vacuum packaging? And if not, is that part of your R&D right now?
So we currently do not do vacuum packaging. However, we do have a handful of customers, even within the pet industry and outside of the pet industry, we make packaging for that, from what I understand, do vacuum package the bags we make them. Our biggest thing is because we don't do it, we recommend tons of testing. So that again comes back to, we offer proofs so you can test out your actual bag, and we offer samples as well. So we can send you samples and do testing on your end in order to see if that's going to work for you. But in-house, we don't do vacuum packaging.
Okay. Are there, this is a question that just came in. Are there any concerns with maintaining the moisture of the pet food, or, the integrity of the pet food with the materials that you do use?
I would say no. We all of our materials are high barrier. So the majority, and we can always supply spec sheets. There is a link on our website, I believe, as well. We can send you spec sheets, but on average, the majority of our materials are around 4 mil or higher, which is a higher barrier. So you shouldn't have any issue with moisture getting in, as long as you heat seal the bag after you fill it, which would also make it tamper resistant as well.
Okay. Let's see what other questions we've had come in recently or before the talk. That we haven't. Oh, so we talked a little bit about color. You mentioned certain colors. I'm assuming that can you do a color match with digital printing if that's something the customer wants?
Definitely. So with digital printing, we can't do spot colors because the colors aren't loaded into the barrel of the press. However, we do have really high quality color matching technology. So if you are concerned about matching something that you previously had or matching a certain color, if you send it in or let us know what the color is, we can make sure to hit that. And the nice thing about digital too is while it's on press, we can adjust color and make tweaks to make sure we match that before it gets produced. So we can do some tweaking right on the press without having to make a ton of adjustments. So that's a benefit as well, that it's pretty quick and easy on press to make tweaks if we need to while we match what was provided.
Yeah.
Okay. What about, is it common within digital printing to help customers with design of their packaging, or do you pretty much receive, finished artwork?
Yeah, we do not have designers in-house. We have a network on our website of designers that we work with daily that know the ins and outs of our template and our process and how it works. And every standard size bag and pouch we have has a template right online with very clear instructions. We also provide tutorial videos on how to set up some of our unique materials like metallic effects to achieve kind of that foil look, and clear how to set up windows. They're kind of, they're treated in the same way, whereas our windows are on a clear material with everything else blocked out with white, and that's the same with the metallic. It's a metallic kind of foil material where white is printed to block out that effect, and it kind of gives the illusion of a foil or a foil stamp, which is kind of cool. So instructions on all of that are really easy to follow. A lot of cool things that you can do with that.
Okay. Back to some technical questions. Someone just asked if there are any issues to consider in terms of filling when you're using a digitally printed package.
There shouldn't be really any difference or concern whether it's digitally printed or printed traditionally. The bags are, because they're high barrier, we've seen they have different machines that can fill. So whether they're machine filled or hand filled, that is something that we actually do ask during the process of you placing an order, just so that we make sure that we're doing ample testing and quality testing before we send you your bag. So if you are machine filling it, for example, we do a little bit of a different quality test than if you're hand filling it, because machines are obviously a little bit more rough than somebody filling it by hand, but it should not make a difference.
Okay, so it really has to do with the material more than anything, than how it's printed. Okay. Are you seeing any changes? This kind of goes back to the sustainability factor. Are you seeing any changes with new laws being implemented in various states in terms of what plastic materials are allowed?
Yeah, we are aware of a few. One in particular, California has a new law within the next 10 years. All packaging must be at least 65% compostable. So laws like that and rules that are changing, we're definitely aware of. We have a sustainability committee that meets weekly, that we bring all of these issues to the forefront so that we know everyone's aware. And as much as we can with our local substrate supplier, sourcing, testing, trying to create these more sustainable products that are going to hit those targets with the laws and things that are changing. So definitely aware of them. We're doing everything possible to find and source and create and whatever we have to do to get more sustainable options up and available to print on.
Okay. Is there a source for that? Like, is there one particular source you follow or that other folks could follow in terms of new laws or regulations coming online or on board?
Actually, where we hear most of it is through our customers.
Okay.
Tell us, well, we do our research as well, of course, but a lot of it is because we have customers nationally. So it was a customer that kind of was talking to us about the change in California and asking, what we're doing and bring it to light so that we have that discussion with them, because, we have really, really great relationships with our customers, obviously. And we want to do everything we can to make sure we're providing these options. So outside of the sustainability committee that does our research, I wouldn't say there's one specific source that we use, kind of just finding it where we can, and then anything we hear from our customers on changing laws and regulations is we bring to our committee.
Sounds like that would be a good project for someone to tackle. I'm not sure who, but
I guess one other thing too, we recently became members of the How to Recycle program.
Okay.
So it's like a membership. So part of that too is like some of the email newsletters and things that come out with that, they can be helpful as well, but that is more not necessarily as about sustainability as a whole, or just packaging as like flexible packaging as a whole. It's pretty broad, but becoming a member of that or kind of keeping an eye on their website can be helpful.
Right. Well, and I know now that the more I'm thinking about, there is a Sustainable Packaging Coalition, or the SPC, And
Yep.
so I imagine that that's a good source to keep track of things like changing laws. So,
Yeah. Yep. Roastar is a member of that actually as well. So that helps.
okay. Get back to some technical questions. Someone asked, are you employing any security printing technology, or have you been asked to employ security printing? I'm not sure I quite understand that either. The person, Ronald, if you can maybe clarify a little bit in your chat, what you mean by security printing?
Like tamper evident, maybe?
Maybe. Well, yeah. Or maybe has to do with the authenticity. Oh, anything to prevent counterfeiting. Oh, okay. Yeah.
A few years back, we ran into one of our larger customers actually requesting that. We're able to do, what is it? Variable data, QR codes, things like that. So I know we tested and did some runs for them because they ended up doing bags for the Super Bowl and they had to do some type of code or variable printing on the bags. We definitely have to talk a little bit more offline about what those requirements are. But I do think that that might be something we could help you out with.
Okay. Okay. And another question, this is kind of an interesting idea. He's asking, is it practical to use digital printing for something like personalizing treats? So for example, if you're doing, one batch within your minimum of 100, could you do 100 different pet names?
Essentially, that would be considered the variable data. You could have a variety of pet names. The one thing you want to keep in mind, though, if we're considering it a variable data run, is if you give us, you want 100 bags and 100 different names. There's obviously a manufacturing tolerance where when those bags are being printed, let's say the name Rex, for example, didn't meet quality standards, we would toss that one out. So we'd probably need a list of 150 names, and then you get a random array of those 150 names. If you wanted to consider it variable data. If you didn't, and you absolutely needed an exact of one of each of 100 names, then you would have to actually create them almost as separate artwork files, and you'd have to actually order 100 of each name to guarantee them all instead of the variable data, for example.
Okay. Interesting. Let's return a little bit. We had so many questions, and I think you've covered them fairly thoroughly, but some questions about the sustainability. One of the first questions we got in during the registration period was, is there anything such as truly environmentally friendly packaging for pet food and pet treats? And it sounds like, with all the research you're doing and the substrate you're using, that we're getting much closer to that. But maybe we can go a little bit more in depth on that, please.
Sure. So we're in the process of trialing a recyclable, flexible option, but something that we recently launched that's also digitally printed but not flexible is a tin can. And we have an example here. So this is probably our most sustainable option. It's 100% curbside recyclable, can be thrown right in your recycling at home. Minimum of these is 100. Again, digitally printed, no plates, no setup. We can just print one and be done. So minimum of this is 100. It comes with, I don't think this example has it, but it comes with a top that gets seamed on after your product is filled. Pull it off, like similar to like a can of peanuts. So this is definitely our most sustainable product right now, as we're still trialing recyclable option, and hopefully someday would have a backyard compostable option, because currently our compostable is industrial. So
okay. Yeah, someone had asked about biodegradable options, which, is that really the same as compostable, or essentially?
I know
the terms are tricky.
Yeah.
I can definitely get clarification, but compostable, I believe, is very similar, but I can definitely, if that person wants to drop their email, I can definitely look into like the exact verbiage that we like to use in regards to the materials we have on hand. And again, we're trialing new stuff. So I can tell you what we have now versus, you know, what we're hoping to have in the future as well.
Okay. Okay. Someone just commented that he loves the metal can. Is it shrink sleeved or labeled?
Neither, it's printed directly on the can.
Ah, okay. Cool. Cool. And do you offer just that one size or do you offer multiple sizes? So for example, we know that for cat food, it comes in the little, you know, the little 3.5 ounce or even smaller, like the single serving size.
Right.
Yeah. We just launched this, so currently this is the only size we have. We do have an option that's slightly taller without the ridges, the non-beaded, that will probably be next. And then a shorter version as well will be coming. Probably both the two different sizes will probably be coming around the same time. But for
Okay.
currently, this is the only size right now. It just launched last month, so it's pretty new.
Oh, wow. So with the technology you use, is it possible to get even as small as like a, you know, single serving? I think those are what, 5 ounce for cats?
Yeah.
You know, is that possible?
It is possible. Absolutely. We just have to become experts in the machine and the parts needed to load the cans to have them digitally printed and stuff like that first. So that's why one size at a time, because we want to obviously perfect the products. You know, another thing in R&D right now that, you know, with all of our market research, we've been noticing is instead of a can that's curbside recyclable, canisters that are made of corrugated material, so they are also recyclable, has been a really popular thing that we've been working on and on testing as well. So like really kind of cool sizes that would be perfect for things like catnip, treat specialty, you know, smaller runs of treats and then bigger versions of that. So again, just one more thing we're trying to do to get on that sustainability train.
Sure, sure. And with the cans, can those be used in a normal filling line?
Yes, absolutely.
And they're safe, obviously, through the whole retort process and all that.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. There was something else I was just going to ask, and I just lost my train of thought. Shoot. Sorry. It was something to do with the labeling. Oh, we had a question come in, and I know we didn't. So if someone is the person who asked this is on the line, and can clarify, you were asking about labels and you know, what kind of, you know, like in terms of like search data, you know, what are successful digital labels in, you know, have you seen metrics in social media shares, impressions? We weren't quite sure we understood that question. So if you're on the line and can clarify, great. But I guess, you know, it does bring up maybe a more general question for you and Sadie and Paula is what, I mean, are there any advantages? Do you think consumers know and can they see whether something's digitally printed versus a normal package? I mean, are there benefits for pet food or treat manufacturers in terms of the consumer facing relationship?
I think just at quick glance, you might not notice the difference. Photos with digital are going to look beautiful with 800 DPI versus 300 or less potentially, depending on the method that's being used. A skilled printer might be able to tell with the loop and see the dot pattern how it's printed, but definitely even twice as better quality with digital, especially you're going to be able to see that in photos. So I hope that answers the question.
Sure. Sure. Yeah, I mean, it's not something that consumers would know why, but they may, you know, notice a digitally printed package on the shelf versus one done a more traditional way, and it just, you know, pops better or is clearer.
Yeah, the registration, you know, because of matching up plates on a traditional printing may not match up versus digital where we don't have that.
Gotcha. Okay. There's a flat, this is a question that just came in. Is the flat pouch the only one currently available in EVOH? And what does that mean? So maybe the person is asking what EVOH is.
So EVOH is a material type that we offer that's really popular for things like the barrier properties are a little bit different, where the inside doesn't have that metallized PET. So frozen products, more oily products like beef jerky kind of treats, things like that. Really acidic products like salts and things like that. The EVOH is going to be a lot more popular for that type of material because it doesn't have that metallized interior, where inevitably it could kind of get like eaten away, for lack of a better term. The EVOH material we offer in flat pouches, we offer in the stand-up pouches as well. But our other two bag styles are a side gusseted bag, which is maybe a little bit more popular for things like coffee, but can definitely still be used in the pet industry. EVOH would not be available in that. And then we have a flat bottom bag as well, which is very similar to the side gusseted. That one would not be available in EVOH. So only flat pouch and stand-up pouch would be available for that EVOH material.
Okay. Okay. That makes sense. And I learned something new now today too, because I didn't know what EVOH was either. Is there anything else that, we haven't covered so far that you were hoping, that people could learn about digital printing and what you do? Putting you on the spot here, I know.
Right? I
We
know.
were just looking at our
We had a couple
cheat sheet.
little
Notes we wanted to make sure we touched on, and I think
we at one point we touched about like our maximum web width, for example, and that is where our biggest bag size that we offer comes from, essentially. Well, the nice thing about, because maybe not all of our bagging machines can create a really big bag, our maximum web width is almost 29 inches, like Sadie said. We do have customers that want something smaller or bigger than like our standard sizes, and they order roll stock. So essentially it's their artwork printed on the material, overlammed, and then we send them the roll of material, and they either in-house convert it or send it to a co-packer who would convert it into the specific bag size they need. So they could essentially get a bigger bag, maybe not quite as big as a 50-pound, again, because of material options as well. But, roll stock is always an option as well. Stick packs, like those little, like, I'm sure you guys have all seen the little videos, or you've seen the product of the cats that eat that little, like the moose treat.
Yes.
And like stick packs. We cannot currently create a bag quite that tiny, but we do have customers that order roll stock, and they have their co-packer use that material and form it into those sticks. So that is an option with us, but we wouldn't be able to actually form it for you.
So I'm assuming that those customers do that because they want the higher quality printing.
Yeah.
And with the size they need. Is that, does that become, really costly if for someone considering the option?
Roll stock actually is technically going to be more economical than bags, digitally printed bags. So everything is still digitally printed. So you are not paying for the forming from us.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you're actually getting the product at a lower cost. And I mean, the minimums are still really low for most sizes. 1,000 linear feet is going to be our minimum. So
yeah, it's only going through half of the process through us. So it's
so it's probably comparable then they're paying for the rest of the process through a co-packer.
Yep.
Yeah, some people have the forming machines at their facility, so then that cost as well. And then the nice thing is we still offer proofs, so for color matching, things like that with roll stock. And then we also offer trial rolls. So if you are working with your brand new machine and trying to get familiar with it, or you're working with a co-packer trying to nail down the perfect size, we offer a trial roll that we would mail them, and we would send them, and then they can actually test it to make sure it forms it correctly.
Okay. That sounds like a great option. Well, with that, I think we are through all the questions. Thanks very much, Paula and Sadie, for your discussion today and sharing your expertise. Thanks again to Roastar for your support. To learn about other pet food industry topics, please watch for more Ask the Pet Food Pro chats coming throughout the year. And we also have several webinars scheduled through our pet food industry platform, so please watch for those. We'd also like to encourage you to please save the date for next year's Pet Food Forum, which is in Kansas City, May 1st through May 3rd. And there's all kinds of learning opportunities there, as well as opportunities to meet with industry suppliers like Roastar. We would greatly appreciate your feedback on today's chat to help us improve future ones. So if you can please take a second to scan the QR code that's on the screen now, or we also will be sending a email with a survey link. So please respond to that. The email will also include a link to where you can find the recording. So just a reminder that will be available in about a week. And you can find it on petfoodforumevents.com under the Ask the Pro tab. So again, thank you for joining us, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your day or evening.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks, everyone.